Welcome back to the Skiff. Thanks for joining us today. Again, we're on podcast. Put CDM.press in your daily scan. But I'm going to bring in Chris Gleason. And hold on one second. Chris, my friend,
How are you?
My chat was blowing up last night. If you have the raw data, send it. It's shameful. This guy picked the wrong county to peddle this BS. We filmed every step. Show me the raw data. It's 2 + 2 + 5. If you believe that, don't believe this guy. So that was all over the chat last night. What say you, my friend? Broward Empire is pushing back.
Well, Broward, it's really an easy thing, right? I'm not using my data. I'm using their data. So I guess the question, right? The question that everybody needs to be asking is, where's the audit logs?
Yes.
And so very simple solution. You want to see where it is. You want to see, show us the audit logs. Prove to us that you legally certified the election. Prove to us that you did not actually disenfranchise hundreds of thousands of voters in Broward County. And you know what? If you can't produce the audit logs and the machine logs and the configuration reports, well, then you know what? You can't prove anything.
So you asked for all that stuff, right?
Just yeah. Yeah. I mean, these people are absolutely, they're just clowns. That's the only thing that you can, they are actual clowns.
Well, they're criminal clowns, like from the movie It,
They really are. They really
in the sewer.
And the funny thing is, right? None of these members and participants in the election corruption cartel, right? None of them. I've yet to see one piece of official documentation from the voting systems or anything else, okay, that debunks what I found. Nothing. And it's the government's own data.
I didn't even respond to the guys. I was just like, okay, you have your la la land over there, but we're going to keep reporting the truth, and you're going to keep having to respond. But what I find fascinating, Chris, is all over the web, I still see people saying, I support DeSantis. Casey DeSantis will be a great governor. That's the top of the cartel food chain, right?
Of course it is. Them and the Bushes. Because it was the Bush machine that helped out there. And at the end of the day, we really have a binary issue, right? And the binary issue is you have corrupt election officials who have illegally administered and illegally certified elections using machines that were completely uncertifiable. And that's what the math says.
We had David Clements. Let me interrupt there. We had David Clements on yesterday, and he was talking. Ed Martin is starting to talk about this. Did you see that? The certification?
I did see that. And we raised these issues in Maryland a couple of years ago because as we were looking at this, I'm like, well, there's no way that this legitimately happened. These blank ballots. It just didn't legitimately nor organically happen. And so that was when we started asking for logs, for reports. And, I got my hands on my first set of audit logs, thanks to you hooking me up with the guys in Georgia, and, I was shocked. I was like shocked. I'm like, I can't believe this. This is crazy. They're deleting ballots. They're deleting images. They're doing this. They're doing that. And, the more and more we dig, the deeper they're getting and the more prevalent their lies are, we had Ron Turner claim that, that it's a blank page. We had Ron Turner also claim that blank ballot was not defined under Florida law. Well, it is.
One of the things they were saying yesterday is that, so you presented data that there were the same exact percentage of blank ballots across multiple precincts, multiple elections, multiple states had the exact same percentage of blank ballots registered by the machines, which is obviously an algorithmic result. And we presented that to this Broward representative, I won't give his name, last night, and he said, well, we checked all the blank ballots ourselves, and he sent me a picture of a stack of ballots or a stack of papers. I mean, he didn't answer the question about the percentages.
Trust us, it's the gold standard. So unfortunately for them, okay, all goodwill is gone. All right.
Yeah.
You don't, innocent people don't redact and hide and alter election records. Okay. I mean, we caught Wendy Link, backdating computer systems to generate reports. And then they've since deleted all of these records from the PRR systems. Yeah. And, I mean, and then you have over in Pinellas County, the anything related to the election records, it looks like the Epstein client list. The whole thing's a black page, Yeah. Can't do that.
It's quite fascinating. Well, give us an update on where you are in your multiple legal challenges, I should say, because you've got a lot going on.
Yeah. So one of the cases that I was involved in, one of the first ones actually that brought up the certifiable or non-certifiable machines and the smurfing, that case is supposed to be going before the Supreme Court. That's the Gibson versus Maryland case with Walter Charlton. That's supposed to be percolating there. Peter Bernegger is getting ready to do some depositions of the ES&S executives, and he's supposed to be flying out there to meet with them at their headquarters. So that should be that should yield some interesting answers. We have the Bongiorno case that they are illegally and unlawfully using taxpayer money to defend Wendy Link against election fraud, corruption, and misconduct charges. And they're desperately trying to keep discovery from happening there. My case, we have massive structural and fundamental error by judges who have illegally and unlawfully not disqualified themselves and have ruled on my case. And so we've got a bunch of motions filed there. Here in Pinellas County, they're also illegally and unlawfully using taxpayer money to defend Julie Marcus and her numerous co-conspirators. And, I'm working on some criminal complaints for the smurfing nationwide. And we have this really big thing with vote by mail fraud. And we had a long meeting with the criminal inspectors from the U.S. Postal Service. And we were with them for about 3 or 4 hours. We had a conversation, and they had some questions, and I said, yeah, we'll get you some of those answers. And we found those answers and then some. And so I expect a nice big package to be delivered to them very, very shortly, along with a package to the Civil Rights Division of the DOJ and Kash Patel and Pam Bondi. So,
speaking of those two, Patel and Bongino are coming out and saying, well, Epstein obviously killed himself and there's nothing wrong with the Trump assassination. Or, it was just one guy and nobody was involved.
Yeah.
I just was like, what?
Well, I mean, maybe in the FBI file that they have, all of that stuff wasn't in it. All of the, I mean, technically, right? If they remove all of the really incriminating stuff from a file, well, I mean, of course you could make it look like that, right? I mean, if you delete and get rid of key data, I mean, what did they review the video footage? Oh, wait, they put it.
Yeah, right.
Oh my goodness!
And the guards were all asleep, and the door was open. It's like,
Yeah, I mean, well, I suppose if you're only looking at what is in the file and all the really incriminating stuff wasn't in the file, then I guess you don't have an issue, right? It's kind of like when Pete Antonacci, the head of the Florida Election Crimes Division, right, when he got all in a shouting match with Ron DeSantis and Uthmeyer and Cord Bird and other unnamed persons, and when he left, he dropped dead, leaving the office, and
in the hallway, right outside the governor's office for 20 minutes. Nobody knew he was on the floor.
And coincidentally,
the camera
and the video camera didn't work either. So I guess there's nothing to see there either. So,
wow.
I mean,
wow. Yeah.
I mean, when you're committing treason, what's a couple more felonies, right?
Yeah. What's a few more notches on the old body count belt? What's wrong with that? Chris, can you come back? We'll do another segment. You got a few more minutes with you?
Yeah.
Or
yeah.
Sure. Go? All right. Be right back.
We recommend you take this moment to do what we're about to do, which is enjoy an Alp.
This is a special report.
Knowing how to invest your money is harder than ever before. Dealing with stock market volatility, record debt, and terrorist attacks requires new thinking. At U.S. Asset Management, we can help you see the world more clearly so that you can move beyond the chaos and invest with confidence. Call us, visit us online, or drop by our office. U.S. Asset Management, helping you make better decisions with your money.
We're back with Chris Gleason talking about the pushback in Broward County against the election fraud disclosures, which he brought to market a few days ago. So you sent me some screenshots. Do you want to use those, or what do you want?
Yeah, sure.
So this is the first one. What is that?
Okay, so that is a that's a page from the EAC certification and scope document. And what this part of the scope certification, it shows what is certified, what is okay for use, how is this machine set up. And, one of the things I want to draw everyone's attention to is under networking, which is the very bottom of the page. And right there, it says wide area networking, use of modems. No. So modems are not approved. Wide area networking, use of wireless. No. Wide local area, TCP IP. No. Local area networks, use of infrared. No. So essentially, from these certifications, attaching any of these devices would mean that it's not approved. And if it's not approved by the EAC, then you can't do it. Now, one of the other interesting things is if you go above the block above, right? Blank ballot. So what is a totally blank ballot? A totally blank ballot is a ballot that has not one mark on it. And these machines are supposed to identify that, because if it identifies that you have cast a 100% blank ballot, the machine is supposed to warn you and tell you, Mr. or Mrs. Voter, you're casting a 100%, you're casting a blank ballot. Do you mean to do this? And we tested this. We tested this here in Pinellas County. We tested it in other counties. And so the machines are supposed to be configured to warn the voter if there's overvotes, undervotes, blank ballots. And so what we have seen elsewhere is that large numbers of blank ballots would have flagged and presented to the voter that they had, in fact, intended to cast a blank ballot. So, they kind of have a bit of a problem, right?
Mm-hmm.
So let's go to one of the other documents.
The number 2, this one?
Yeah. So what is a blank ballot? So the election corruption cartel wants you to believe that a blank ballot is a blank page. Well, a ballot is a ballot regardless of pages. So what they fail to account for is that if these were in fact a blank page, you would have a substantially higher number of ballots being shown as being cast. And so that number wouldn't rectify, right? So in the report, one of the reports that I used to determine the blank ballot percentages, called the key canvassing report, it shows blank ballots. I mean, that's what it is. I mean, the machine manufacturers, they have a definition of a blank ballot. And so this document here in front of your audience, our audience, is the result of a survey conducted by the United States Election Assistance Commission. These are the people who certify the machines. And so a biannual survey is produced every 2 years. And from 2010 to 2016, they were establishing the baseline of what the definitions of these terms were. And so Maria Matthews and her predecessor, they both defined clearly for the EAC what a blank ballot was. And so right here, the vast majority of states who took out of grant money from the federal government, they had to, as part of the compliance with that grant, they have to fill these things out. And so they have to clearly define what a blank ballot is. So that would bring us to the next document.
One second here.
And this was an excerpt from one of those surveys completed by Maria Matthews. And right here, we go back to the premise that Ron Turner, the former president of Florida Supervisors of Elections, Inc., aka the Florida Election Corruption Cartel, he said that blank ballots were not defined by law. Well, what does we have there? Oh my goodness, a blank ballot. And there's a reference to a statute. Oh, geez, how about that? And so what they claim is a blank ballot is in fact a undervote. Okay, so if a voter went out on election day and there was one blank page, and say there was 2 or 3 or 4 voting positions on that ballot, but they filled out all of the other pages of the ballot, you would have those 3 or 4 choices on that last page. They would be considered an undervote. Okay, and that too is also defined by law. It's also defined in the operating manuals of the voting machine companies, because all of this stuff, it's all documented. So when I ask for things like the audit logs and the event logs, well, there's a reason why we ask for that, because we know what we're going to see. We're going to see how they configured the machines. Did they configure the machines in such a manner that the voters were not informed that they cast a 100% blank ballot?
Right.
So what is it? Broward, the folks in Broward, if you're listening, and I'm sure you are, I tell you
they will be. They will be if they're not now. It will get in front of them.
So here's what we want from you. Okay. It's time. It's time for the literal come to Jesus talk. Okay. And what you need to do is you need to produce all the auditable records. So that would mean the machine configuration reports, the machine logs, the audit logs, and the event services logs, because we know for a fact that these machines connected to the internet can be compromised remotely, because we found the patents, we reviewed the patents, and essentially what they say in the patent claims is that anyone skilled in the art would know that you can take control of the machine remotely and do anything in the world that you want.
Yes.
And that would include playing Pac-Man on the thing or flipping votes. And, the same machines that Tulsi Gabbard was talking about, the Dominion and ES&S, the underlying technology is fundamentally the same. So if you can flip the votes on the machines, which we know that they can do because it's in the patent claims.
Yeah.
So if you're able to access the machines remotely, which you can do anything you want. And so they need to be answering some questions, some pointed questions to us, because, this isn't a question about, a simple blank page, right? Because for every single blank ballot that we have seen cast is an actual voter whose right to cast a ballot has been interfered with. So this voter did everything they were legally required to do, and they were stripped of their right to vote. And the candidates that they voted for, they were stripped of their right to receive votes. And so this creates a constitutional crisis that must be addressed. So, Mr. Broward County, you need to produce the records. We want them all. And we want them certified that they are true.
Yeah, it's very simple. I mean, they're like, well, instead of producing records themselves, they are saying, give us the data. And like you said, well we got it on the state's website. Yeah. So
it's your own data, dummy.
Yeah. Well, so, their response would be, well, we don't know that's the real data. Well, okay. So
yeah,
whatever.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Chris, where do we go forward? I mean, I was talking to Clements yesterday, and we were talking about federal response possibly, because nothing's happening at the local level, obviously. What do you think?
Well, I mean, we are fighting at the local level, whether or not these individuals, these judges, even, in my case, we have judges who are materially implicated as material witnesses to victims of, participants in, beneficiaries of. This is the same judicial crisis that we're seeing at the federal level, where you have these highly conflicted judges not disqualifying themselves, despite having a clear and mandatory duty to do so.
Right.
So, I mean, really, this is going to ultimately have to go before the United States Supreme Court, because what we see here, right, is such a pervasive problem. This is a violation of the guarantee clause of the United States Constitution, because we are guaranteed a constitutional form of government. And now there's a lot of case law from the Supreme Court, a lot of rulings saying that the guarantee clause is not justiciable, meaning you can't litigate it. However, there is some exemptions to that. And those exemptions are where you have civil rights violations. And so we have civil rights violations. We have civil rights violations here in Florida, and and probably elsewhere as well. I mean, just like in Maryland, we know what's going on there. I mean, I've seen massive numbers of blank ballots in California. I've seen them in Arizona. In Wisconsin, they decide to omit the data entirely from the records there in some counties.
Well, they're doing that in Florida now, right? They don't.
Now they're doing it in Florida.
Yeah.
So, I mean, at the end of the day, the auditable record of the election is the only record, as far as I'm concerned, that is worthwhile. And it's the only record that they legally certified the election. So if these people are claiming that the auditable records of the elections are trade secrets, well, that means that our elections are trade secrets owned by corporations, which that's not the case.
It's called fascism. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Chris,
we have to hold them accountable. That's what we have to do.
Completely agree. Anything else you want to get out before we let you go?
If you are out there, you should go to your election administrators and ask them for the precinct level reports. And you want to see if there's blank ballots listed there. In the clean counties, you'll see 0 or very, very low numbers.
Yeah.
And usually we see the high numbers of blank ballots where there's high incidence of fraud. So get involved.
Excellent, my friend. We'll have you back. I don't think this is going away anytime soon, but thanks for coming on short notice. The chat was blowing up last night. I got to get Chris on and respond to this. Anyway, thank you. We'll see you soon.
Okay.
Take care.